Broadcasting live from the nation of Gilead, it's the Steam Gentleman, here bringing you in all the best information that is under his eye, and blessed be the fruit. That's right, your nation of geek has indeed reconvened here in this glorious new land, all holding hands and singing Kumbaya. It's I, the Birdman, here to lead you down into the subterranean tunnels, into the back channels, if you will, of all things that are pop culture and social commentary. And that does indeed fall into our purview. Join in a nice little, it's a damp day up here in our little New England hovel, but we are underground and safe and warmly ensconced. The rituals have been observed, the rites have been spoken, and we have convened. And indeed, one more time here for the beautiful month of June. Happens to be my birthday month, and more importantly, though, Pride Month, as we are here to make sure that we are getting all the full benefits out of LGBTQ+, making sure the free parking is still there, the free delivery, the streaming services. It's really fantastic. Actually, I would even say it's fabulous, really, if I'm gonna go with that. And I'll introduce our special guest again right off the top. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm very well. I wanted to let you know that LGBTQ+ still includes premium and free parking in Provincetown. Our glitter, you can upgrade to LGBTQ+ glitter, which gets you spring tickets at a drag queen brunch.
Oh,
yeah,
fantastic! That how is the Eggs Benedict? I'm just curious.
I've actually been kind of I would assume it's fine. I've never actually had them.
Oh, all right. I mean, when I think brunch, I want like Eggs Benedict. That's just, I don't know why, that's my brunch food. That's
eggs
my brunch
are ingredients.
True, but they are the part of the name. They're the front part of it, and then you put the hollandaise sauce on it, and you put it on top of the little of the English muffin, and you get the Canadian bacon, and you're good to go.
If you're eating eggs as a meal, that means you're lazy and you gave up, and you should just kept going. You're at like step one of whatever recipe you're working on. Eggs are ingredients.
Hollandaise sauce is not giving up. Okay, you shut your whore mouth on that. All right, hollandaise sauce is efforts.
All that was someone forgot they had some eggs out on the counter, and then they just went ahead and poured it on something just to make up for lost time. Like 1,000 years ago, we've been replicating the same thing since.
You say that like it's a bad thing. You call it a bad thing. I call it the cornerstone of civilization. But that is, of course, our very own 3 of clubs, Mr. Rashawn Smith, coming in hot today. How we doing other than spicy?
I don't understand how religious texts stopped at meat. They had a lot of other things that could have prevented people from getting hurt and killed if they ate a little too soon. Yeah, I mean eggs, but whatever. We can go with cured meat, and we can go with shellfish and all that good stuff. But
don't forget dairy. Don't forget dairy.
And there it is, eggs right there. Also, congratulations to you for being able to sneak in radios to me and Greg while we're working in the burn pits, the radioactive burn pits at Gilead. It's because guess what? If we're going by the book, me and Greg ain't actually hanging out in the city or one of the soldiers. And actually,
we're going by the book.
Mike might be with us too. So yeah, we're in the radioactive.
I think we're all hanging out. I think we all know where we're headed. Okay. I don't think I've got any deluxe accommodations coming.
I don't know, man. You're kind of good with a hammer, man. They might keep you for like the workforce.
Yeah. But my ability.
But you're like half.
But yeah, there's the half thing, but my ability in my mouth to be, and I'm holding up bunny quotes for our listeners, one of the good ones. It's just not very good. I don't sell it well. You know what I mean?
They'll take your tongue. That's all.
There's that for sure. There's definitely that again there. But other than that, how is the water? How is the water in the radioactive burn pit there, Rashad?
Oh, fuck me. We get water here?
Well, it's just to boil you in. That's all.
You didn't tell me that. I haven't had water in like 30 days.
Oh, shit. Oh, my Lord. And of course, this little festival would not be complete without His Eminence, the Star Child, the one, the only, Greg DeSense. And how are you doing today, sir?
Oh, broadcasting live from Warwickham and enjoying life with my entirely unregulated genitals.
Just go on down. I guess you give him a little pat and a little how do you do today?
Right? There are no rules for my dick. None.
Well, how's your father?
Go insane.
Oh my Lord. Well, I guess
going insane.
I guess I'm just gonna give you a salute and a little tip of the cap to you for thinking all that through before you were born and making sure that those genitals were on the outside as opposed to the inside. All right. You planned it out well.
Put me back in. Wrong genitals.
Well, good planning on your part. So I'm glad you can sit here today and enjoy the good life such as it is, but
totally unregulated.
Totally unregulated.
Totally unregulated.
Well, that it's what can we say? Freedom is but a fleeting thing. So enjoy it while it lasts, people. But we are back here today, still celebrating Pride Month. Last week here, kind of getting into July. I can't even believe it, man. Nonetheless, the month named out, named for the man, the myth, the legend, Julius Caesar. But before we bid adieu, we wanted to come back around and as we've been doing all this month, talk about those wonderful contributions by our LGBTQ plus brothers and sisters out there in the world, particularly in pop culture, entertainment, and of course, always for our social commentary. But we wanted to focus in a little bit on music because let's face it, we all need some good music to get through right about now. It is just one of those things that just keeps the spirits up and keeps you, there living as long, living in your life, not just existing in it. Right? It helps, connect us all. I know for myself to emotions of all kinds, good, bad, up, down. Music personally ties to memory. That's actually been shown scientifically. But it's shown that smells and music are the two things that we tie to memory so much, and that can, spark very, very vivid memories. And I know that it always does, for times and places in my life. And the fact of the matter is, if you took out the contributions from the LGBTQ plus community, you would not really be having, I don't know if we'd have much to go by. I really gotta say, it just, boy, I don't want to live in that world is what it plain and simple comes down to. So with that, we got a friend Mike back here. We wanted him to talk a little bit about what was going on in his life and about some of the contributions and some of his memories and everything you bring to the table for his little 6 minutes of fame here. So Mike.
Hey everyone.
Hey, educate us again, my friend.
Thank you. Third time the charm. The 3 best co-hosts I've ever met. And my third time that we got a nice tripod going here today. So one final trip.
See what you did there.
Hey.
Don't make a funny face, but I laugh.
Oh, we all know what you're up to out there, Mike. We all know.
He's here all week, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm here all week. I'm happy to see you. All right. Anyways, so the Wayback Machine goes like this. I was talking about like the McCarthy era and the Hays Code and all that stuff with television and movies. Well, Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis, their real job was to sing pieces written by Black performers. Chuck Berry's Duck Walk was just too much for them, for white people. Little Richard, the guys that invented rock music, Little Richard and Chuck Berry couldn't be on television. And then the original godmother of rock music before Aretha was Big Mama Thornton, who wrote "You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog." And so Elvis would sing it. You could see him only from pretty much the chest up. So you couldn't see him gyrate. They play the song end to end. And so the fact that not only was she Black, but she was also gay. So people who knew her, would see her pictures. She'd be wearing a men's shirt and tie, and then she'd be arm in arm with her partner. And in this day and age, no biggie. But back then, that was like beyond scandalous. Like people, it was beyond radical for those times. Brian Epstein, who managed the Beatles, was gay, and under the British sodomy laws, it's actually where John Lennon came up with "You've Got to Hide Your Love Away," because Brian actually had problems with his closeted lifestyle, and then a lot of that mop top look was, a couple of British princes had those, but that was very androgynous for like 1960s America with flat tops and stuff. Like Elvis's pompadour, that was androgyny for them. And so the page boy haircuts that you'd see on the Rolling Stones during the second British invasion was part of that. It wasn't, and I was just thinking about who's openly gay. It's like Elton John told Rolling Stone magazine in the 70s he was bisexual, and it changed nothing as far as his fan base, or I think it may have attracted more people. Michael Stipe of REM, I remember seeing them in concert. Someone yelled, "You suck," and Stipe just went, "And how do you know?" And I mean, you figure that guy grew up gay in the South. He's kind of short, so you figure what kind of stuff has he gotten in his lifetime? The other thing was, I'm way into bands like Aerosmith and Led Zeppelin. I actually dated a guy in college who was way into Kiss, and so there will always be a place in heavy metal and hard rock for gays and lesbians, and we know that from the Runaways. Joan Jett and Lita Ford were the founding members, and they said, yeah, they had a lot of gay fans, a lot of lesbians would go to their concerts. And as I was sort of shuffling through out musicians, the one that always cracks me up is Rob Halford of Judas Priest. He used to buy bondage gear. That stuff he's wearing on stage, that stuff, that the term for that is a leather daddy. And he dresses like he'll come out on a Harley, and he's dressed like a leather daddy, and all the spiky collars, the chains, whips, all that stuff. And their fans, all these suburban kids, with the tight jeans up at their waist and the t-shirts and everything, with their mullets and smoking weed and all that good stuff, they're all wearing like, they are wearing, they call each other the F-bomb as an insult, but they never realized that until he came out of the closet, which was not that big of a shock to a lot of people, that he was gay. But it's sort of like, look at except for Breaking the Law, where he's wearing like a shirt and tie, every other video or clip is either disco like clothing, or he is wearing leather like bondage gear. And like, how could you not know that? The only other thing I was going to say was, it's lucky for them that they didn't have to perform harder. I mean, Freddie Mercury, admitted he was bisexual, and then he came out as HIV positive the week before he passed. And I think that was, it sucks that he died, and I would have liked to have seen him through the 90s, through grunge and alternative music. But the upswing was a lot of people who normally weren't tolerant of gays and lesbians because they liked Queen or they liked heavy rock, and they saw that their metalhead friends were sad. Suddenly, there was now in the national conversation that, people could die of AIDS, and it could be, literally anyone could die from it now. And that was a nice, like, if you're going to have any kind of a turning point with the AIDS epidemic, that would have been it. The only other concern I've ever had is just that, like Ani DeFranco and other gay musicians like Jason Mraz, they have to work harder because they're gay. And you saw that with Lenny Kravitz. I've seen him 3 times, opening for the Stones, opening for Aerosmith, and then sharing a bill. He's straight, but Black women and gay musicians, unless you're Elton John or Freddie Mercury, have to work harder. And that's always been the one source of frustration, is why are these people who are more talented than some of the gunky here on the radio, why are they working harder? And why did Chuck, I can't think of his last name, the bass player for Styx, why was he in the closet all those years when Styx is a glam metal band? It's a glam rock group. Like, it would not have mattered. Those guys really they wore both ears pierced, a lot of stage makeup, a lot of hair teased up. Like, why was it? And then all through hair metal, all that androgyny that you saw from like the New York Dolls and so forth. They brought in a lot of like latent bisexuality in their music.
Well, as the Peacemaker said, it was a time when men were real men and weren't afraid to be women. So, it was just, I want to give a quick shout out to the Runaways, just because, even just such a upfront explosion of female sexuality, right? I mean, their number, the song that is associated with them is Cherry Bomb, and I just fucking adore it every time I hear it, right? Hello, daddy, hello, mom, right? It's just this whole thing. I am having sex and it's happening with whomever I want. And it's so, just what an ode to anything, right? And like I say, it doesn't have to be there. It almost doesn't matter, right? What the choice is, what the preference is, right? It's just such a, in your face, grab you by the throat, embrace of sexuality. It's still just one of my favorites. I rock out to it every time I hear it, without a doubt.
I was just gonna say, a lot of people don't know that Mr. Roboto is actually very homophobic, so that's why.
No, is it?
No. To be fair, he was built that way. I mean, he was built that way. It wasn't his fault. He was put together, even though it wasn't necessarily on the topic of what we're talking about. Mike, thank you very much for bringing up Elvis in that regard. I'd like to direct people to what Ray Charles had to say about him, because that kind of encapsulates it very well. Elvis was actually a bad word in my house growing up for that reason. And it was always funny watching people talk about Elvis and his talent, especially when it came to his moves, and listening to older, pretty much like 90% white generation. Although you'd be surprised, it's not 100% white. There's definitely people who are not white who feel very passionate and strong about Elvis in a positive way. But anyway, to talk about his hip gyrating, and even as a little kid, I'm like, this is like watching a person go to dunk a ball, but stop, do a couple of practice squats, check their form and their knees, then jump up in the air, and then hold the rim, and then wait for someone to bring a ladder so they can get safely down. That is the equivalent of his gyration versus any other gyration I've ever seen. Which, and the reason why I use basketball is because it's another one of those things where people automatically assume based off of race because of bad stereotypes. By the way, people, all stereotypes are bad, negative or positive. They're all bad. But because that, people just see someone and like, oh, well, they can't. Like when Tyler Hero a couple years ago dunked the ball and he slammed it on someone, and people were like insanely, thrown off. Other people like, he's 6'6", professional basketball player. He should be able to dunk the ball. But they're obviously thinking because he's white versus. So what I'm saying is, like, obviously you don't necessarily have to be a color to dunk or slam or to dance, but the bar got lowered so far down for people like Elvis that when it's glorified, it's like, okay, but what I'm watching is the most remedial version of what you can find across the board, no matter who you're looking at.
And I'm not that angry so much at Elvis and all those other white groups that were basically just singing black songs, because if Sam Cooke was too real for you, then Sam Cooke was too real for you. Here, add some water, and make it more palatable for you. Make it more palatable for you. It'll be a gas. But I think the point that you touch on about especially androgyny kind of hits on what I'm going to talk about, like the fashion, like it being a fashion, because Rob Halford, he had his own style. Freddie Mercury, there was a style there. And as for being shocked about some of them, no, you weren't shocked, but that's always going to be, as a minority, a part of your development, that part where they're entertained by you. They just wouldn't want you to be their kid's teacher.
That's a very common response. I'm glad that, I'm glad you picked out the style, the image that was probably, even though MTV didn't go on the air till the 80s, they were making promotion clips for the record industry. And that you sold more tickets when you had more vibrant album art, and then you had more vibrant sets and costumes and pageantry. Even the rock group Genesis did that for a long time when Peter Gabriel was their lead singer. His videos are still, the videos he made in the 80s and 90s were very vibrant, and they certainly reflect that very much so. Yeah.
Well, I think that leads beautifully into, the vibrant colors of Greg's thoughts for the day, because Greg definitely is going to bring the Star Child, and is going to bring lots of color to the commentary, and let us know what he's thinking. So what Star Child, where do you want to take us a little tour to in our salute to LGBTQ in music?
Well, I mean, it has to be said that if there's one thing that America prides itself on, it's being able to package the outsider, like being able to take whatever group of people that you shunned and then sanitize them and put a price tag on them and then make it the popular thing for a little while. But while it was the underground, while it was the counterculture, that's when a lot of these groups, they found a kinship, even if they didn't always want to recognize one another. A lot of those underground clubs, a lot of those underground bars, like they were venues not only for the gay community, not only for the trans and drag community, but for also hip hop groups, for a lot of R&B groups, blues, both when it was alive and dying. You had those scenes that were very much alive in New Orleans, Atlanta, Miami, Harlem, Chicago. And they were, a lot of them ended up like, just as Michael touched on a second ago, a lot of them learned from each other, And did you want to jump in?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, I'm just.
Yeah. And so it absolutely gave way to fashion. Now, fashion is a dangerous thing. Now, when I say fashion, I don't just mean clothes. I mean being the in thing to do. And when it's the in thing to do, that's great, because it's really easy to get people on top behind your movement, because it suddenly becomes the in thing to do. But it tends to just be very shallow. And then when people move on to the new thing, they move on to the new thing. One point that was made was Afrocentricity in the late 70s. Everybody had their dashiki, everybody had their Afro pick, and it seemed like everybody wanted to overthrow the system until they didn't, and that kind of leaves that group that needed that support, out in the lurch. So in the 80s, you had this beautiful explosion of androgyny, you know what I mean? Like between like Annie Lennox and Cyndi Lauper and Grace Jones was gorgeous. Like you had, like no one did it better. Exactly. And Andy Warhol, and, it was all very, very fashionable, and no one was coming out and calling it gay, because partially you knew better than to, but also because they knew that part of this was a fashion. Like it's just what you did if you wanted to be famous in the 80s. And because of that, like you could kind of almost see this huge line in between the people on the forefront, the people who are really fighting for, rights and liberty in the streets, and then the fashion of it all. So what do you say or do with an Elton John or a Boy George or a George Michael or a Prince? Like eventually they're going to have to not answer for it, but it's like, are they taking a position that the people on the streets can use to then push their movement forward? Some of them did, some of them didn't. Like Grace Jones was very active in the gay and drag and trans scene in New York. So was Andy Warhol, very active. So was David Bowie, very active. Like it really did depend, but it was far from across the board. And my favorite thing about it, even though, like I said, it did turn out to be a fashion and everything changed, because as time went on, you still hit the 90s, and the 90s probably was defined by Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which was a kick in the balls to the movement entirely. And it kind of became just the term for how people see gay, trans people in America. Like that was just how people saw it, and that was just going to be the motto going forward. So it was kind of a good thing, because it really did energize them, and it energized them to push the left further as well, because obviously, we have that conversation all the time here. We always say, the person was progressive for that time, The person was progressive for that period. They were very progressive, and I'm sure the Clintons at that time were very progressive. But now we look at things like "Don't Ask, Don't Tell," and we're like, "Dear God, how did we consider these people to be?" Children of the love generation at any point, right? Like, really, like this is your best solution, like just pandering to homophobes. But that turned out to be a good part of the Democratic Party anyway. But it's not to say that I don't think that what happened in the 80s and the style and the fashion, because it, even if people are just taking that shallow attitude to you, it brings you in. It brings you in. It brings you in through the almighty powerful mechanism of television and music. And so it does kind of say, you know what, this is an introduction to us. And I think it did that. I think it did that. I don't think it was necessarily a useless thing, and plus, you know what? It made for some absolutely memorable moments. I mean, just, Andy Warhol popping up everywhere. Andy Warhol was on the Love Boat. Okay. Dandy Andy was actually on the Love Boat. And that's really what made that part of Andy that much better, and so I honestly think, as much as it didn't have the huge long lasting effect that it did, it was the makeup and spiky hair face of the movement for a little while.
Well, firstly, I love that you can say Dandy Andy was on the Love Boat. That's
Dandy Andy fantastic. Was on the Love Boat.
That's our wheelhouse. Like if we had sets of slogans here at the Steam Gentlemen, I think that would be amongst them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you can say that. This will probably sound totally dumb, but when you were talking about that and since sort of the theme of this show is pop culture and social commentary and how it runs in and how these things weave back and forth, when you were talking about how it was fashion and people were dressing but you never necessarily said it was gay, it sparked the oddest memory. It's a scene in the movie which, why wouldn't you think I would go here? The Arnold Schwarzenegger classic Commando, right? Why wouldn't this subject matter bring it up? But there's a scene early on when he's sitting there with Alyssa Milano and she's got like a Teen Beat magazine and he's opening it up and Arnold's sitting there at the breakfast table with her. He goes, "Why don't they just call him Boy George? It would make more sense," right? Just total Arnold moment. But that encapsulated the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. There was Boy George, right, dressed in the full makeup with the hair, totally androgynous. Even the name is a play on it. Boy, mm-hmm. right? Like everything right there. But I don't remember anyone actually saying it, right? No one actually said, well,
that was absolutely the tightrope.
Wait, saying what?
Saying, of course he's gay. Like I mean, we said it maybe as kids and stuff, but not in mainstream entertainment media.
Well, like, I think that's the magic. I think that's magic of us in our little creativity project of our podcast is we're all coming at it from different angles. Because I can tell you right now, in my house, there was no doubt who Boy George was or who he wanted to be with or anything like that. But it also didn't prevent his songs from being played on the radio. My parents didn't give a shit. They were just like, yeah, he's gay. So what? If you want to listen to the radio, this is what's on the radio. And I think we would all be remiss. No one's defending the Clintons. I would just point out again, we can't historically look at things from our direction back. We have to look at it from historical forward, meaning, yeah, what they did, not great. No one's going to be defending it. However, if you put it up against the decades before, it was very progressive. It moved things along, not in a good way, not in an awesome way. I'm just pointing out it's easy to look back at it from our lens and say what is or isn't.
Well, that's always a challenge, always the question. But
again, I'm not defending them. I don't want anyone to attach that to me. I'm not saying any of that bullshit. I'm just pointing out this is how history works.
I ought to, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I did actually hear recently on a podcast about the article that spawned the term super predator, which then later got picked up by Ms. Clinton. But that actually came from an article first. Good times. Another one of those just,
Yeah. And I think you
from
can
the 90s.
definitely, I think the best license that you can give them is progressive for the time. Robert E. Lee was an intellectual for the time. Like a lot of, like for the time is the best way that you can give them a little bit of exemption for what they said or what they did at that time. But however you choose to frame your history, how we see them now is your lens.
It's not a matter of framing the history.
Whether you like it or not, it's your lens.
It's not a matter of lens or framing history. It's literally like, so for example, a lot of people say right now, if Ronald Reagan ran, he would not be able to run as a Republican. Why do they say that? Because through history, things have shifted. It's not a lens, it's actualities. So things shift. So the person, if he existed now with the same principles he had then, would still come about in a certain way. But because things shift, it is going to land him in a different perspective. That's all I'm pointing out.
When I say lens, it means how you see it, because you're seeing it the way through your experiences and that shift that you're talking about. So that's why I said you can't Rashawn living now with his experience, and he looks at history, that's how he's going to see it.
And you continue to tell me what my lens is, which
not.
is hilarious. That's the funny part, is you want to make an individual, but then you want to tell me what I'm thinking. So which one exists in your thought?
Well, I have a thought.
I don't have to say that's what you're thinking. I'm saying
you just said that.
No, I said if you are seeing it through your lens, there's no way you can escape that. It's just a fact. You can't say that.
You guys accidentally gave me the segue. You were trying everything but giving me the segue, but you did it. Thank you, both of you. That was awesome, because I wanted to talk.
And none of us mentioned The Cure. So we just want to,
all right.
Just for absolutely no reason, we want to say The Cure.
The Cure. Well, show's not over yet, but I when you talk about shifting lenses and history and how things change, I want to go back to yes, no relation.
You don't know.
Who knows? Hey, maybe there's
some English blood somewhere.
There you go. Right? Who knows? But when it came to the idea of discovering one thing at one time and then going back and looking at it through another lens, I wanted to bring, my little experience growing up as a kid when I first heard David Bowie. And the fact is, when I first heard David Bowie, it was off his album China Girl, which in the 80s was a runaway monster fucking hit, right? My parents liked it, which is also probably why I didn't like it, to be quite honest. Or my mom and my stepdad liked it. So, all right, so there were some reasons not to like it right there. And at the time, I just was, really the biggest first hit that dropped off of that was Let's Dance. And it now, again, lens, time, distance changes. I feel completely different about that song than I did when I was like 10 in the 80s. I thought that song was over the top, droll, kind of like a bad impersonation of Frank Sinatra in some ways. Like they were just like all this kind of notes it hit literally and figuratively. Now I see it as a total work of genius. Okay. I truly do. I go back and I absolutely love it. Stevie Ray Vaughan is on guitar, who is also one of my all-time favorites across musicians across the board. Love the guy. But at that time, I really hated it. And I remember there was a friend of my mom's. She was from Tucson, Arizona, of all places. And she was staying with us for a while, helping my mom get her business off the ground. And I remember talking about Let's Dance, and she said, oh, well, that's so much better than when he used to be quote unquote punk back in the 70s, like his older stuff. And there was just this light bulb that went off in my head that was like, wait, what? because here I was born in the 70s and I still remember some music there. And I still remember some music on the radio from when I was a kid, but Bowie had never really stood out. Nothing about it had tripped. So here I am in the 80s and yet literally walking into the local record store, asking for David Bowie when he was punk. Boy, that got some good looks from the record store people. But that nice, right? But that led me to the beauty, right? That was David Bowie, right? That all of these things, going back and discovering Ziggy Stardust and discovering that the man himself was like the Doctor, right? He just regenerated every couple of seasons into something completely new and different. Just that tonality in his music, even just his play on words, his play on rhythm, and yes, the makeup, right? The makeup, the hair. And then that was how I discovered, I started watching things that he too in the 70s had come out as bisexual. It didn't seem to impact his career at that particular point in time. And that seemed to be the way it stayed for him most of his life. But he was there. He has a famous love affair with Iggy Pop, no less. This is just the beauty of music, right? You discover one thing, which leads you to another, right? So I discover glam, I discover Iggy Pop and Velvet Underground and all of the other music that comes from this, and all of that first wave that we were then experiencing, of course, again in the 80s, as you say, with The Cure, Greg. So we can give them their due. Disintegration, right? Best album ever, as they said in South Park anyway. The one-hit wonders of Dead or Alive. We talked about them a little in our pre-show here. And just the hair and everything coming out, but really just opening up to the idea that in fact there were people out there doing this, expressing themselves like so, and just how cool it was, right? Just how this was like some really cool stuff. Like if you could pull this off, there was always I was never the kid who pulled that off, right? I've been watching Stranger Things, and I am such, I am such the Dustin with the little baseball cap and the bad teeth, right? And overweight and all of that.
Because I've been thinking Will.
Will definitely could have fallen in that category too. It's all there.
You get pretty mad when we don't set up the table right.
Yeah, it's those types. They definitely lead into that. And then, but I had a friend who was Eddie. If you're watching the latest series, and I was really glad they brought Eddie in there, because my friend was just like Eddie, wrong side of the tracks. Had the denim jacket with the big patch on the back, long dark hair. But just like I say, that interplay of that kind of style and that bravery it took to be unabashedly yourself, no matter what that self was, something I did not achieve in my childhood. I don't know if I've ever achieved it, but I have such an immense amount of respect for it, right? When you could see musicians who could go on stage and tease their hair, put on that makeup, and just fucking rock. Right. I started this with a quote earlier on from Peacemaker, and I will go and it's still my favorite quote when someone is asking about the band Poison and saying, "Are those a bunch of dudes?" kind of derogatorily. He says, "I believe their preferred pronoun is long live rock." And there was something so awesome about that. I think that just really sums it up, right? That music gave quite the bit of population. And certainly, amongst the LGBTQ community, which needed it so badly, right? This ability to be unabashedly and unapologetically yourself to the world and get away with it, right? And that was the beauty of it. Not only get away with it, get popular for it, and in the cases of the extreme success, get fucking paid for it, right? That is amazing. In the middle of, as we were talking about, Ronald Reagan's America, right? You had the moral motherfucking majority out there, right? You had the president of the United States had his personal favorite spiritual advisor, televised preacher, for God's sakes.
He did.
And in the middle of all that, coming from the 70s into the 80s,
Nancy.
And so Nancy, she just, went a little more woo. But we had all that. So that was, David Bowie was my first, it was my gateway drug. There you go. I think we need that on a shirt.
That hits it because, you can kind of say if you want to, overly simplify. I know I'm overly simplifying, but that's exact. Yeah, that was perfect because that's what I was saying, because it was like David Bowie was your entree. Would Marsha P. Johnson be your entree? Probably not. But Marsha P. Johnson was, that activist, and David Bowie was the entertainer, and whether or not he visibly threw his arm around the movement. And again, another discussion about how we see people as being progressive now. Not David Bowie was very progressive, by the way. But that's exactly it. Like, there was that street movement that was not as easily packaged, that was very, very, very Stonewall. And then there was, the fashion,
I think it brings it to the fore. Yeah, Mike, any thoughts here? Any thoughts here for us? Any of this stuff bringing up any memories for you?
Yeah, actually, I'm really liking this. I love these conversations you guys have. There was a funny thing that happened. George, the first President Bush, has been referred to as Reagan's third term, right? And while he was president, a little band out of Seattle, Washington called Nirvana popped out. And they were complete salute to the Sex Pistols and the Buzzcocks and the Ramones across the board. There is one of my favorite songs of theirs. It's called All Apologies. And the line is, "What else should I say? Everyone is gay." And it's either I think it was the first time Nirvana hosted did a musical appearance on Saturday Night Live in '91. It was Smells Like Teen Spirit and Territorial Pissings. They were great arrangements. But during the end credits of SNL is when the cast all hug each other and shake hands and all that. Well, Cobain turned and kissed Chris Novoselic on the lips. Chris Novoselic is like 6'5" or something. So, and Kurt Cobain was kind of short, was about 5'7". So they had to put some work into it.
Yeah.
But in the liner notes to either Incesticide or In Utero, it says, "Hey, to everyone who got mad that we kissed during SNL, Nirvana is not your place. That, gays, lesbians, people of color," and it was actually how they phrased it. Everyone here is welcome. And I think that's been part of punk rock, is like a lot of my affection for punk and heavy metal was my time in the closet, was that the angry lyrics, I could just go scream at the top of my lungs after a nice long bumpy day in the closet in Wellesley, I'm trying to put that as there's no euphemism on that. Just why would I scream at Kurt Cobain lyrics?
Don't put. Yeah. Just go.
It was Primal Scream Therapy was debunked, but I gotta tell you, the 3-4 complete Nirvana albums and like Metallica's first album, Kill 'Em All. Why are these my favorite albums? Because there's no apology. They completely echo the Sex Pistols and Black Sabbath perfectly. And they help me scream at the top of my lungs. And having gone to, not on Facebook, but other social media has gay metalhead pages, and like having been to Metallica concerts, and there's Dykes on Bikes is a lesbian biker club, and a lot of leather guys.
I hope so.
Like, a ton of lesbian couples go to those shows, and like a lot of gay guys go to them, and it's because music's awesome. I like to drink beer. Beer transcends sexual identity, but you spend time in the closet or in a suburb where you're just not going to fit in one way or the other. Whether I was at my goal weight or I was athletic, I still wasn't going to fit in. That stuff just got me through, and they did tie back to, you mentioned the punk bands of the '70s. Lou Reed was really the first queer icon with and Warhol at the Warehouse with Andy Warhol and Nico. He was Dirty Boulevard. Sweet Jane was a transvestite. What else was there? And then that echoes again later in the Ramones. They have a song called 53rd and 3rd, which is Dee Dee Ramone working as a male prostitute. in Third Avenue, so that'd be like on the west side, like not too far from the Greenwich Village and stuff.
Yeah, but I say close to the Village. Yeah, I figured. Yeah, that was the scene back then. I do remember.
Yep, and the line is 53rd and 3rd, cannot get a trick. 53rd and 3rd, don't it make you sick? And Metallica, in their Garage Days, which is all their covers, their albums of cover songs, they sing that. And James Hetfield, there this band is from San Francisco, and they're going 53rd and 3rd, and I'm trying to turn a trick. And I have no idea if Hetfield ever knew that to this day. But like, how could a metal band in San Francisco in the 80s and not have gay fans? You know?
Well, I was gonna say that I would give them that much credit. You know, I mean, they are from San Fran, so you know, you would hope. I don't know. It's possible to insulate yourself anywhere, but you know, that city has always had a connection back to the community once again, right?
And I didn't, and I mentioned the counterculture. A part of that was always sex workers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. A part of that was also gay, straight, drag, trans. Like there were probably every kind of sex worker. And yeah, they were definitely part of that scene too.
Yeah, that goes back to Haight-Ashbury too, with the Grateful Dead and Janis Joplin. There was a lot of those runaway hippies were a lot of them were gay, and they would grow their hair out for the androgyny, for bisexuality, or because they were outside of the gender binary. And that was like the first. So places like Haight-Ashbury would be in Oakland, like a Grateful Dead concert, not just because everyone's stoned, but just, you know, is a place where you're going to feel pretty welcome. And there, it's called the just skip back to punk for a minute. There's a really good documentary about the 3 or 4 years the Sex Pistols were actually together and they completed that one album. It's called The Filth and the Fury. And they go to these, and in this film, they show footage. I think it's like TV reporters interviewing people going into a Sex Pistols concert in like Atlanta in like 1978. And this really nice, sweet, innocent 19, 20-year-old gay kid from the South is like, this is the only place I'm accepted. And yeah, a lot of the early punk, like Henry Rollins talks about the only venue that Jesus Christ, not 7 Seconds, Black Flag would get, they and REM would play gay bars because that's where punk rock would be accepted.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, I know I'd kind of jump genres and decades on you, but yeah, it's
that's what we do here.
Black Flag was awesome. And it weaves together. I mean, it really does. It really does all, you know, it's tangential, but that's just the way it is, right? All of these subjects end up interacting and literally making this tapestry that is this, well, this reality that's changing day by day. But I think we saved the best for last here, though. I got the three of clubs on deck, and I know he's going to talk about his dad and his record collection. So I know he was Steve. Wow. Okay. All right. There I go.
But this entree definitely had been sitting underneath the Mormon light for a good 20 minutes. So I don't know if we saved the best for last. You may be sending this back. All right. So part of the reason why I never do homework, I've never been good at homework, and I'm probably not going to start now, is mainly because, you know, that's in the past. That stuff already happened. We already covered that. I want to talk about what's coming up next, what new part of the subject we can talk about. And generally speaking, that tends to mean that the conversations at hand tend to enlighten the subjects of the past a little bit more. We often talk about history, and as I counter many a time, history is not only written by the winners. Not many losers get to write the histories, no matter how much we like to look at it, but it also has perspective. And we can't change it, no matter how we personally feel about things or how we want to change definitions of words to make it make a point. It actually makes more sense, and there's actually way more glaring information if we look at dead on and try to look at it from before these incidents happen and then moving forward, because we actually have a timeline to see it play out, and we don't have to guess or take anyone's personal account other than the fact that, like I said, history is written by the winners. Good example is, since we're talking about music, guys like Mozart and Beethoven. We all picture those guys wearing big old white beautiful wigs, with the curls and the locks and all those. They basically look like Goldilocks went into business of taking her hair, fashioning it up, and then fashioning about a million different wigs, and then everyone put white powder on it and they're wearing it. We all think, for some of us, a lot of people, and when they look at history, think that was the real hair. Some people kind of think, all right, well, it probably wasn't all the real hair, but that was the style. But we really don't ask why. Well, funny enough is we've actually covered this a few times in TSG. The reason why is because all those fuckers were bald because they didn't have any good water. So their health regime was just so bad, like just so bad. If you lived any city in the Middle Ages or even in the Renaissance, industrial period, basically all the way up until about 1850, you weren't really around access to water. So chances are you had really subpar hygiene. So a lot of these assholes that we highlight, and we're talking about music, so I'll talk about these two, Beethoven and Mozart. They're probably bald as anything. They probably had shitty skin complexion. But we look back at it and we see the wigs, we see the hair, we see the style of dress, how they do things. And I can keep going on the style of dress. It wasn't so much that they were trying to make a point in the way we see it. It was a point that made sense for them then. So for us to go back and change it kind of makes things weird. I'll give you another example, a little bit more recent. It's 1990. What if I give you three individuals? One's wearing a nice half shirt. One's wearing a shirt that's off the shoulder. One's wearing, nice, long, luxurious, or they all have nice, long, luxurious hair. We've talked about the hair, beautiful curls, jewelry all over the place. One even has a fuckboy tank top on. And guess what? This group gets to call a group of kids who are wearing nice button-up shirts, tucked into nice pants that they can move in because they like to dance and rap a little bit. One was a kid, one was a play. But they got this group, the first group, got to call the second group all sorts of homophobic slurs. And no one batted an eye. Why? Because in 1990, a group like Full Force can show up looking like I just said, and they can call another group some homophobic slurs, and no one batted an eye. Why? Because in perspective of what was going into 1990, the fashion, as we've all talked about, was moving a weird direction in the sense of not weird in the style, but weird in the perception of how we took it. So with that said, we continue to evolve with how we look at music and all the fashion, and the two do run congruently together and oftentimes interact and change one another. But how we look at it very much, and to be fair, Greg did bring this up, when you're in the moment will skew how you look at it in the moment, not historically, in the moment. So in the moment, no one batting an eye at all the guys who are wearing stuff that objectively now would probably get you labeled something that would end up getting you a homophobic slur. But back then, no one thought anything. They thought they were manly. They thought they were cool. I would fast forward to another example of this and even bringing it even closer to the present time and what we're talking about with the evolution of music and also representing all cultures. In this case, the LGBTQ plus guy. I hope I got that right. I'm going off memory. Mike, did I get it?
I was on mute because I was about to blow my nose. Yes, you got them all. Perfect.
Boom. Thank you. I stayed up all night for that. So
Crushed it.
So 1990, it was what I was talking about. That was a little movie, a little indie movie we like to call a house party. But 3 years later, a group comes out that is setting the world on fire. It is probably one of the most globally recognized groups of all time. It represents a small genre at the time of rap, but we all know them as Wu-Tang Clan now. 4 years ago, my wife surprised me with tickets to go see Wu-Tang Clan in Mohegan Sun. Awesome concert. It was great. Those guys brought the energy. I was very impressed for guys that are probably in their mid to late 50s, maybe even a few early 60s. I even joked about how it was probably funny because these guys still have the same lyrics. I mean, they didn't change the lyrics. They're going with songs that they wrote in the early 90s to mid 90s, all this. But we're also talking about guys who probably bring their kids to like soccer practice and then probably do the carpooling for the neighborhood. And, I can see Method Man be like, all right, come get your snacks, guys, crush of oranges and stuff like that. So why am I bringing those guys up is because if a rapper of prominence came out in 1993, a group like Wu-Tang Clan probably wouldn't have been cool if that rapper was like, hey, I'm gay. I'm gay or I'm bisexual, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward to 2020, when a very prominent rapper, one by the name of Joe Budden, came out as bisexual, and then another rapper who was not as prominent because he just started. He's only been really in the game for the last 5 to 6, 7 years, but has done very well, has a strong following. His awesome lyrics, an incredible artist, Isaiah Rashad, he also comes out as gay. Although unfortunately for him, his privacy was ripped from him, and someone actually put it out there, so he didn't really get a chance to say who he was. But still, so we have 2 gay rappers. Why did I bring up Wu-Tang Clan? Because individuals like them across the board didn't even bat an eye. They straight up came out and they're like, look, you're talking about 2 individuals. That is their life. That is what they care about. That is no business of ours. And the way we look at it, they're phenomenal artists. And if you don't like them and what they do for their art, then fuck you. You don't really rock with us. How do we get there? I would argue that, and the reason why I'm pointing at Wu-Tang, and I talked about how there were probably parents bringing kids to, carpools and soccer practice and all that. Because think about it, life, that's what life does. It exposes you to more. It makes you have more conversations. It makes you feel a sense of protection from more people as you grow older and older. They probably have had conversations with their kids, and I'm using them as an example, but I guarantee it was across the board to the point where almost literally 0 prominent rap figures said anything negative about Joe Budden or Isaiah Rashad when they came out. And that's awesome, because I would argue because of the growth of their life and the conversations they've had to have, perspective has changed, even if their history hadn't.
Well, I knew I was in for something special. I miscalled it with the record collection. I'm sorry about that, but that was a thing of beauty right there.
I gotta give the people variety, man.
And you do. I will say it's tangential but related, and I'm also going to tell you I am not. I'm the jokester over here. I like to crack wise. I like to say a lot of bullshit. But your wife, Sarah, our number 1 fan, has her 90s hip hop game on fucking lockdown. We need to, frankly, if she ever wants to come on an episode, I think we would basically, all 3 of us will leave and we'll just let Sarah talk about 90s hip hop, because after that one conversation when you guys came out for my birthday, I'm like, damn, she's putting my ass to shame right now. She knew everything.
All we would have to do is be like, Sarah, music collection in your Bronco, go. And
boom.
just,
yeah.
Sit back.
I mean, that touched on what I meant. Yeah, what I was saying about countercultures and packaging the outsider. Yeah, I mean, you look at all of those like 90s R&B groups, just Jerry curls and sweaty chests and tight leather pants and high heels. I was like, yeah, real badass. But you know what? Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Like that was absolutely the fashion, because that was also part of that androgynous, very gay influenced fashion of the time. And especially just to talk about the color scheme. Now you're talking about the color scheme. It fascinated me because, again, you have that black and gay counterculture overlap, and everyone is just learning from each other. Everyone is just in the same scene. And when you talked about a house party, I was like, yeah, perfect example. Absolutely perfect example. And it was weird for me because I do see things in a peculiar way, especially when you're looking back at when you were a teenager, the things people used to say and do, and it would just always be weird that everybody would be looking up to these dudes but talking shit about homosexuals. And I was like, yeah, but we're not gonna we're not gonna talk about this guy. All right, yeah,
all 3 of them.
You're real macho. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah, all 3 of them. And I would say, to everyone's point, the weird, beauty, that's a weird word to use. The 80s were a lot of weird things. Let's say the umbrella of the 80s allowed for, because I would argue if you told a group like Full Force, that they were being
Oh my God.
anything,
Oh
they
no.
would have beaten you to a pulp. But
Right.
they were
If
doing
you told
it
Lionel
because-
Richie that.
right? But
Yeah.
they're doing it because by the mid to late 80s, that look was considered because it was so many, because everyone's points are so sound, it was so many different levels removed from the origin that by the time you get to a full force, like, yeah, that's not as manly as you think. And they would look at you like, what the hell's your problem? No, this is totally manly.
It was a little different with Prince, because Prince, you know what, when you step it up with lace, it's like, all right.
yeah, lace was a lot.
Yeah, when you step it up with lace, you're taking it that extra step. But yeah, all of those 80s black R&B groups, oh my Lord. oh my Lord.
Do I look good? Shut up. I mean, it was
the asses, just asses. Like
what was
just asses.
Greg, what was Prince's album that had Kiss on it, the song Kiss? But I just remember the album cover was him like just completely naked, just barely covering the appropriate bits.
I think that was that Love Sexy?
That might have been Love Sexy. I just remember the album cover like up on the strawberries, right? And it was just, and I remember too, Mike, I always feel like I got to give you a mea culpa just because the amount of times I use that derogatory term amongst our friends. I mean, that was just what, and and oh, he's gay. And oh God, did you see that Prince album? I absolutely remember my friends just railing against it and now looking back on it, it's so terrible. And I know a few of them have come out since then too, of course. So,
people more likely to drop the F-bomb were probably very closeted.
There was plenty of that going on.
That's how you project your displeasure of things. The other thing, it just got me thinking. First of all, go on YouTube, look up Charlie Murphy, Eddie Murphy's brother. Charlie Murphy. He and his friends playing Prince's friends at a basketball court at 3 a.m. in Los Angeles.
Oh yeah, we know that skit.
We know that skit.
Know about it. By the way, rest in peace, Charlie Murphy. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. That is absolute gospel on this show. Is Charlie Murphy, which would like to come back to our house and play basketball and eat pancakes.
Exactly. The other part of it was, I never got the joke of it, but all right. So Eric LaSalle, he got to start on St. Elsewhere, and he was really easy on the eyes.
Oh
and
yeah.
He played the boyfriend in
Coming to America.
Coming to America with Soul Glow, which is a play on Afro Sheen. And I just remember because that was pretty much the same man perm as El DeBarge, and I loved Who's Holding Donna Now and The Rhythm of the Night. The video where he's up, like he's like propped up on the windshield of a car. It's kind of funny. But like with the tight jeans and the beautiful hair, exactly. The way he, it sold them a lot of albums, and they've got a Criterion Collection album, and those are like the first 2 or 3 songs in.
Oh yeah.
And those guys were beautiful. And Eric LaSalle, he was just great to watch on television. The Soul Glow with the because it was the pick with the spray pump.
Yep.
Well, to be fair, I guess oh my God, am I saying this? To Jerry curls, there was a number of different applications that you could get. A lot of them are bad. The funny thing though, if you want to talk subculture, we need to talk about the Jerry curl faction and black culture, because holy shit, you guys don't even understand what black sheep is until you start.
We don't need to talk about it.
Well,
there's a reason.
It's a whole.
Greg's right. Greg's right, and I'm definitely.
It's just gonna leave stains, man. It's just gonna leave stains.
I'm just gonna point out like this: there's a reason why there are a lot of people who laughed about the Soul Glow thing, and it wasn't the people who had the Soul Glow. It was. But it was like 1 out of every 10. It was just kind of how it was. Like I think of some of my uncles that would show up to family things and be like, oh shit, here comes Uncle so-and-so, put the plastic back on. It's like, all right, yeah.
And I'm glad you touched on guys who use the F word a lot, because that's one thing, again, like it used to just, I thought it was strange. Like it was just this kind of weird preoccupation with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are you always going on about gay people if you don't like gay people? But it would just be this constant, revolving conversation, and every guy's trying to out alpha the next so they're not suspected. And they would just be like going on about these gay scenarios and how disgusting they are. And it's
A lot
like,
of scenarios.
why do you keep going back to that?
Detailed scenarios, like you might have seen them several times.
You know, like if you don't know, same thing. Like, this is something you don't enjoy, so don't think about it. But it was like a constant obsession, and just like finding ways to insert it, intentional use of that word, into conversation. And it would honestly make me laugh sometimes, especially growing up in the community I did. There was a lot of Caribbean people, a lot of African people, a lot of people who claimed to be very religious. And it was just constant obsession with just the sex, not gay people getting groceries. Like, they do that too, you know, like, no, just the sex. Just
did that.
Yeah, just constantly going back to the sex. It was an obsession. So I gotta give my good, you mentioned that.
I gotta give my good friend credit. I won't bring up his name, but he did have an immediate turnaround. He was going on and on some homophobic bullshit, and he got to the point where he's like, "No, Smitty, what it comes down to is, I don't want, what if I'm sharing a blunt with that guy? I don't want to share a blunt, with this guy, and don't know where his lips were." I looked at him dead inside. I'm like, "So you mean to tell me you knew where the lips were for every girl that you shared a blunt with?" And immediately he's like, "You know what, Smitty? I'll shut the fuck up." I'm like, thank you. If it's gonna come down to something that's stupid, you might as well take it all the way through.
Oh my God, Rashawn, you scored a major victory. Well done.
For the
culture.
You carry that banner high for the culture. Well, citizens of Gilead, it has been our pleasure once again that I'll under his eye, blessed be the fruit. Make sure that we go out and be fruitful, multiply, and be a good citizen of Gilead. And make sure to go to Apple Podcast and make sure to rate and review us. Help us get up that review chart. Help us spread the word.
What a segue!
Spread the gospel of the Steam Gentlemen of TSG. You can also follow us on the socials at Do You Even Steam Bro on Instagram, the Steam Gentleman Podcast on Facebook, and the Steam G's on Twitter. We're out there. We're trying to be active. Greg put up a fantastic meme the other day. I think we gotta get that out to the people. People are really loving that one with what was it? It was Miami Vice with Ice Cube and Ice and Vanilla Ice. That was awesome. I love that. Ice, baby. Absolutely loved it. But Michael, I've been so happy to have you here, man. You have been such a welcome addition. Thank you for coming on and help guide us through and making sure that we are, we hope, doing right by a community that we wanted to do right by this month. And, certainly did. And really talk about all the important things. As we say, these things, it's a tapestry. It all weaves together, and it all, changes our perspective and makes us think. And
if you look if you just look analogy of the bands that we were referencing, all the decades and how we jumped around, it completely weaves together. I wanted to say my final thought, like Jerry Springer. First of all, the only thing worse than Jerry Curl was members only jackets. And No, look, members. The first time I ever bought a car, I got hustled, and that guy was running members only jacket. It was 97.
Oh, it's your fault.
Oh man,
97 members only jacket. That's your fault.
That was his deal, wasn't it?
Oh shit! Actually, he didn't know it.
Jerry Curl is gorgeous.
He just had no idea what the club was. He just wanted to be a member of it. That's all.
Yeah.
That's what the jacket is. You don't know what the club is.
You don't know what the club is.
Josh, just the expression, just this a kindred spirit from the swell. Rashawn and Greg, what an absolute pleasure it's been to be with you on this podcast. And if I ever get invited back, I would love to do this again in the future. And one shameless plug, I will, a week from Thursday, be at Mohegan Sun as part of a stand-up comedy showcase called Thirsty Thursday. It'll be my second ever time in stand-up comedy. And I really appreciate the momentum from this. And I will be definitely plugging the podcast when I get there. So,
well, thank you for that. And please feel free contact me if and post on our socials and all that, and reach out to me, Greg, Rashawn, any of us. We will also make sure to plug your show.
Yeah,
And use what influence we have. Steam people, go on down to Mohegan Sun. You can see some great comedic lineup, including our very own Michael here, and we can have a good time. And everybody just have, we all need a little bit of a good time and just a nice day nowadays. But as we record this now, we're starting our week. But speaking of having a good time, love having fun, Rashawn, tell us what you got planned for the rest of this week.
I swear to God, you love setting me up. I would like to, I guess, conclude my time by once again saying shout out and rest in peace to Charlie Murphy. Do yourself a favor, actually find Nikki Free's interview of him talking about that, because not only was Charlie deadly accurate, he was actually being nice on a couple of situations. And Nikki Free also does a really good job of pointing out historically how the look of Prince kind of shifted from guys at the club making fun of Prince and how he looked, but stopped making fun of him when each time Prince showed up, he would leave with more and more of their women. So it got to a point where it's like, I can keep making fun of this guy when I'm sitting with my buddies and none of them are women, and that's what we came here for. Or I could start looking like that guy and maybe start picking up some women. So Prince, a lot of people were in that guy's wake. Also, I want to claim one thing real fast from last week. People loved the character in Robotech, and that was the point that I was bringing up, was that once they found out that he was actually a female dressing up and trying to be this global icon, and Robotech, Lance, and Star Dancer. What I loved most was that the whole reaction from everyone in the story was not changed. It was like, all right, cool, he's Star Dancer or she's Star Dancer. We don't give a shit. He's awesome. She's awesome. They're awesome. Nothing changed. I just loved how there was nothing other than they're still the same person, so we don't care.
We love it. And well, another person who is awesome, and we love him, her, them, they. I've never asked you preferred pronouns, Greg, but you can tell me or not.
He loves rock and roll.
Star Child. Star Child. Star Child is the perfect pronoun for you. I do believe so. But speaking of which, Star Child, what you got planned on for this week of love and glory?
I'm gonna move on to the beat of the rhythm of the night, dance until the morning light. Forget about the worries on my mind. Let's try to leave the world behind.
I love that song. That song was fucking great, even before I saw Last Dragon. I mean, that was just the icing on the cake.
No, it was cool. And I have to say this was cool. And I was lucky enough to have this happen. Living in California when that song came out, especially the LA area, that was like literally the anthem of LA for a good 4 or 5 months.
And for the record, since we're going to be doing musical roundtables, Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been really fun having you on. And I'm thinking, from just going on your music knowledge, I'm thinking that's going to be the topic when we bring you back, because I want to talk about some more of that shit.
Absolutely.
I'd love
to. It's been a good time, Mike. Thanks.
3 times in a lifetime.
You can come on for whatever subject, man. It doesn't have to be quote unquote gay.
That's great.
You got it, man. You are.
Josh, I just want to let you know I was a lot of Eddie's Ericas growing up. There was a lot of Eddie's in where I lived in Framingham, and I was a lot of Eddie's Ericas.
A lot of Eddie's Ericas.
And I was pretty proud.
That's beautiful.
I was pretty proud about that, man. It took some work, but I had to show up like Erica, lay it down, put some knowledge where I knew where I should, and I was always loved.
Well, that just warms the cockles of my heart. Maybe the sub cockles. Not quite sure. I'm just trying to pin down, but somewhere I got a warm feeling that goes with it. Could be my acid reflux. Who knows? But whatever. We'll just we'll all go.
A little verklempt.
A little bit clipped. Talk amongst yourselves. All right. Well, till then, citizens of Gilead, thank you so much for coming all out today and celebrating Pride Month with us. Until then, it is I, Josh the Birdman, telling you to keep your heat up and keep your head of steam on.
Thanks, guys.